So good morning. My name is Jason Batiste. I'm the Executive Director of the Waban Tribal Council here in Timmins. And it's great to see all of our mining partners and folks in the room today looking to find better pathways to engagement on mineral development in the territories where our communities are. So thank you for joining us this morning. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my colleague Nicole, who has once again done us a great service in organizing this morning's and today's event. So a little bit of a round of applause for my friend Nicole over there. She worked so hard at this, so thank you, Nicole. I've been given the task. I wasn't prepared to say too much this morning, but Nicole asked me to introduce Minister Pirie. Minister Pirie, George Pirie, of course, is our homegrown MPP here in Timmins. And I've had the pleasure of knowing George and working with George for a little over 10 years now, and it's been mostly good news. George, we have our polite differences, but at the end of the day, he's a supporter of First Nations agreements. He's a supporter of how we operate in partnerships and engagement. So, despite all the noise that's going on and the reasonable ways that we're concerned about current legislation, I do believe that George is an advocate for our communities, and I'm happy to introduce him. So, Minister, it's all yours. Thank you very much for joining us.
It is truly a real pleasure for me to be here today with you. And as Jason said, we've worked together for a number of years. In fact, I was a board member with NIWIN for a period of time through my association when I was on the board with, at that time it was WRI was Waugashing Resources Incorporated, which is a corporation that was set up to capitalize on the resources that were in the traditional territory of the Waugashing, now called Abitibi. So we lost the mic. Oh, there it is. Okay. I've had a long working association with the Indigenous people, understand fully exactly how important it is to partner with the First Nations people. You've probably heard me say many, many times, nothing is going to happen in the resource sector without the Indigenous community. My journey of knowledge in that field actually started when I was with Placer Dome with the Musselwhite Agreement. And we had, it was a tremendous agreement. We had 5 nations that were signatories to that agreement. And we saw what development progressive development that was done right with the First Nations in those communities, did for those communities. So that's how I started, with a guy like Jim Cooney talking about sustainable development when no one really knew or had a clue about what sustainable development was. And sustainable development, as you know, is defined by meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of the next generation. And quite frankly, this is what this is all about. I do want to acknowledge that, of course, that we are gathered in the city of Timmins on the Matawbie River, which is the home of the Matawbie First Nation. I want to thank Waban Tribal Council and Matawbie First Nation for co-hosting today and for inviting me to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to see many old field friends and to continue some of the conversations that we have been having for years about how we can work together to have new opportunities and shared economic growth. I also want to say one more thing. Jason's brother, Sean, he was my deputy minister when I was the Minister of Mines. He's moved on. Quite frankly, we couldn't have had a better deputy minister. I think everybody knows Sean's background. Tremendous individual to work with, tremendous advice, working together with me in mines, especially on the Indigenous relation issues. So I have a strong background, strong commitment in working with the Indigenous people. As you know, I just took on this new portfolio a few months ago, and I'm excited about the opportunities that we have for economic growth in Northern Ontario. And I'll say this once more time. When I'm talking about that I'm excited about the opportunities that we have for economic growth in Northern Ontario, I fully understand that nothing is going to happen without the Indigenous communities. So when you hear me talk about opportunities in Northern Ontario, it has to be understood that I understand and we understand that nothing's going to happen without the Indigenous people. And quite frankly, that's simply the way it should be. I want to see the resources that we have under this ministry be used as a catalyst for economic growth and to help build strong, healthy communities. All communities, Indigenous communities, and every other community that we have here in Northern Ontario. I'm looking forward to many conversations about the best way to accomplish that goal. Through my previous ministry, I was happy to work on resource revenue sharing agreements that saw nearly $300 million in revenue shared with Indigenous communities. We look forward to our continued work to ensure a stable resource sector full of economic benefits for all. And as you understand, I think those revenue sharing agreements are probably transformational for the Indigenous communities. I guess that might, it doesn't really matter. Those revenues are shared between 40 and 44%. Those revenues used to come directly into the coffers of the government. Now they're transferred directly to the communities and or the tribal councils. You can see the effect that those revenues have with those communities. In this new role, there are many more opportunities to ensure that economic benefits are realized and shared. We know that part of the future economic growth is making sure that we have the proper infrastructure as well as the tools and programs needed. I want to talk a little bit about this year's budget. On May 15th, we released the 2025 Ontario budget, a plan to protect Ontario. The 2025 budget includes measures to protect Ontario workers, businesses, jobs, and communities in the face of uncertainty such as the U.S. tariffs. And again, you've probably just heard that the President of the U.S., the United States, President Trump, increased the tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. We don't know yet what he's going to do on the forestry sector. But whatever he does, we know it won't be helpful. I want to talk a little bit about the forestry sector. We know the forestry sector over the last number of years it's been death by 1,000 cuts. We're now down to 3 pulp mills in all of Northern Ontario. The last one we have in Northeastern Ontario is in Kapuskasing. And I'll tell you what's at risk here with those tariffs. There's 47,000 people that are employed directly in the forestry sector. And a number of them, I would estimate probably 40%, are Indigenous. In all of these agreements, and Waugashing is one of them, they have companies that are set up to harvest that forest. It's a direct impact on everybody in Northern Ontario. We have to realize that. Terrible. Can you imagine losing 47,000 people? They won't be able to survive those types of tariffs. We know what we have to do, and it means everybody working together to make sure we capitalize, working together on the resources that we have in our lands. It has to happen. Can you imagine losing 47,000 people, employees here in Northern Ontario, from Timmins to Hearst to Thunder Bay to Kenora to Cocker to Kapuskasing to Wawa to Chapleau, all across the north? It would devastate the north. We have to be working together. Ontario's plan to build includes the most ambitious capital proposal in the province's history, with planned investments over the next 10 years totaling over $200 billion $200 billion, including over $33 billion in 2025-26. Through our plan, we will only grow and build a stronger Ontario. And again, I want emphasis, a stronger Ontario for everybody. A core element of the blueprint is working together with Indigenous communities to help the regions grow and prosper. I want to highlight a few recent announcements and investments that are providing tools for economic growth in your communities. And I will say I'm very proud of these announcements. I was, as Minister of Mines, I had a direct hand in developing these. And how did we develop these priorities? By working around the table with Indigenous communities and asking them, what do you need to prosper? Through the budget, we are relaunching the province's existing $1 billion Aboriginal Loan Guarantee Program as a new $3 billion Indigenous Opportunities Financing Program that supports Indigenous participation in more sectors, including electricity and resource development. We're also investing $70 million over 4 years in expanding the Indigenous Participation Fund, formerly known as the Aboriginal Participation Fund. And this was a direct request from a number of Indigenous communities, as well as the Chiefs of Ontario. And a large part of that money is going directly into increasing the capacity right within the Indigenous communities, with the MDAs, the Mineral Development Officers, Advisors, so that the capacity right within the community is built. So the individuals are trained. They know what they're going to be working on, and it was a tremendous success that we got these funds. Exactly what the Chiefs of Ontario asked for. In the budget, we also committed to supporting First Nations post-secondary studies students. For First Nations students interested in pursuing careers in resource development, the Ontario government is investing $10 million over 3 years to create new scholarship opportunities. As you know, the fastest growing demographic is the Indigenous people, the young people specifically. We have to ensure understanding that the mining industry is booming. We have to provide the opportunities for the First Nations people, the young people, to be trained, to fully participate in this boom that we're currently experiencing. As we continue to take steps on further economic reconciliation and unlock Northern Ontario's resource potential, these scholarships will equip First Nations students with access to the tools and training needed to succeed as leaders and innovators in their communities. Another core element of this year's budget was building the infrastructure needed in Ontario, especially in the north. We know that to grow and prosper, our communities in Northern Ontario need reliable infrastructure. We are investing in highways in the north to improve road safety, connect communities, and unlock economic opportunities. And for our rail network, we have awarded contracts to deliver train stops along the future Northlander corridor, marking another milestone in our government's plan to bring back safe and reliable passenger rail service between Timmins and Toronto. It's very important within my ministry. As you know, it's only just a month. I had really no impact on the budget within this ministry. But folks, if I'm successful with what we want to do in growing the north, wait for the next budget when you talk about northern economic development growth. Wait for it. Talk about the winter roads. There's a small budget for those. We know those winter roads are disappearing. This winter was rather normal, but we know that season is shrinking every single year. We need a lot more money put back into those roads, so in fact our people, the Indigenous people, can get in and out of those communities. But there's another really important reason why, and it's health and safety. You see what's happening in northwestern Ontario right now? Those lack of roads put those communities at peril. When the forest fires are burning in those communities and you can't land, get in or get out of an airport, you're putting thousands of people at risk. I don't even really want to think about it. If you can imagine that fate, we have to build those roads all across Northern Ontario, all across Northern Ontario. And we also want to have conversations about a James Bay deep sea port that could serve as a gateway to our northern seas to connect our goods to new markets, diversify Ontario's trade, and reduce the reliance on U.S. while bringing significant economic opportunities for communities. And remember what we're talking about here. We have, and I know the Indigenous communities are fully involved in this, in one of our clay belts, there's over 10 million acres of arable land, more than Manitoba has, and equal to what is in Southern Ontario. The President Trump talks about not needing our agricultural produce. There's 8 billion people in the world. 7 billion are hungry, and we can feed the world working together in Northern Ontario. Can you imagine that? That's the future. Participating fully in the global opportunities. That deep sea port in James Bay, probably, and I'm going to get the name of the island, at Ticomac Island. There's a study that was the original study in 1972. It's a phenomenal study. As you know, James Bay pierces the North American continent. It's the quickest and fastest way to get the goods out of to Europe and Asia. We do not have a reliable trading partner anymore in the U.S. If there is a silver lining with these tariffs, it's the fact that we will become self-sustaining. The Indigenous communities will thrive because of this, because they're right in the heart of this. Nothing is going to happen without the Indigenous people. It's an exciting time for everybody in the room, actually in the North. Another important tool our government has for making strategic investments in northern communities and businesses is the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, also known as the NOHFC. It's a lot easier if you just call it the Heritage Fund. In January, we announced an investment of an additional $30 million over 3 years, bringing the NOHFC annual budget to over $110 million. This fund promotes prosperity across Northern Ontario by providing financial assistance to projects that foster growth, create employment, and encourage workforce development and community development. We were just looking at the issue of the list of projects in this fund. The number of arenas, community centers with Indigenous people that will be able to participate because of this fund. It helps everybody, every single community. I know a number of communities that have had successful projects under this program that have made a very positive contribution to their communities. I hope to see more projects under this program that are economic catalysts for your communities and across Northern Ontario. We understand the essential role that the Heritage Fund plays for First Nations communities, and we are proud of all of the work we have done to improve the Heritage Fund, and will continue to build on its great success. And I want to acknowledge here publicly, I've just taken over this fund. Prior to that, it was Minister Rickford's and the people that work with him people like Colt. They did a fantastic job. It runs like a top. It's really well organized, and I want to acknowledge the minister that was running this prior to me. I also want to acknowledge the people that are working with me right now on this ministry, because they jumped in and they did a phenomenal job pulling things together for our next board meeting, which will be in Timmins in a couple weeks. It's important to acknowledge to people that helped you, the people that were critical for the development in the past. I'm confident in the actions of our government are taking to spur growth, create opportunities, and move forward with reconciliation across the province. The programs and initiatives I spoke of demonstrate how, together with Indigenous partners, we are building strong, vibrant communities and businesses. We know that healthy and prosperous First Nations communities and businesses are essential for the success of our province. And as I said, absolutely nothing is going to happen without the participation of the Indigenous communities. Thank you very much.